In this video, we're going to consider how the blood composition, so what's in the blood, changes as the blood moves around the body. And in this image, you can already see that it's a capillary, the red line, moving through a sea of body cells. So the little purple circles are body cells. And it's interesting to think we have a closed circulatory system. So we have a network of tubes that carry blood around our body, but it can't stay a solid closed system, because if the blood always stayed inside the tubes, nothing would ever reach the body cells. So when you look at this, you will notice that there are actually gaps in the endothelium wall of the capillary. So that's the cells lining the edge, making the edge of the capillary. They actually have gaps in between them. These gaps are small enough for the liquid part of blood, the plasma, to leak out and bathe all the cells that are close to that capillary. Now, as the plasma leaks out, we change its name because it's no longer blood. Those holes aren't big enough for blood cells to get out. They are only really big enough for liquid to leak out. So the water leaks out, it takes with it glucose, amino acids, oxygen, anything that's dissolved in the water. And it surrounds all these cells with a nutrient and oxygen rich liquid. And then these cells are doing their thing, they're metabolizing and they're producing carbon dioxide. They're making something, there might be a gland making a hormone, and this liquid, which is now called tissue fluid because it's covering the tissue cells, it leaks back into the capillaries and is then moved on to the rest of the body, through the veins, back to the heart, etc., etc. So that is what is happening as the blood transfers through organs. So let's see what happens as different organs receive their blood. So here's a diagram with a few organs labelled. So first of all, we'll start off with a nice easy one. As blood moves into the lungs, let's get rid of that line. As blood moves into the lungs, obviously carbon dioxide is going to be taken out of the lungs, out of the blood and into the lungs, and then breathed out, because that's kind of the purpose. And also oxygen is going to be added to the blood, because you breathed in and you're going to put the oxygen into the blood. So our levels of carbon dioxide in the blood, as it goes through the lungs, they decrease, and the amount of oxygen in the blood as it goes through the lungs increases. Now, when the blood then moves through any other part of the body, the opposite of that is going to happen, because every single cell wants to take oxygen, use it up, and produce carbon dioxide. So that's one thing that's going to happen everywhere all over the body. But some of these organs also do other more interesting things. So the first one we'll look at is the muscles. Muscles remove from the blood glucose and oxygen. They are very active muscles. They're doing lots of respiration, so that's what they're going to want to take from the blood. And the blood also, as it moves through the muscles, is going to pick up any wastes and put them into the blood. So muscles produce carbon dioxide, and if they're working really hard, they're going to be making lactic acid as well. You might have felt lactic acid, it's that kind of nasty burning feeling. So the blood, as it moves through a very active muscle, will lose its glucose and oxygen and gain carbon dioxide and lactic acid. So let's have a think about other organs here. We've got the liver. The liver does loads of jobs. If I was to fill up my board here, we would not have any space for anything else. So I'm going to pick out some main things that the liver does. First thing it does is to make urea, and urea comes from the liver processing excess protein in our diet. So any excess protein that we've eaten, we've made it into amino acids, we've absorbed it, but we didn't need it, goes through the liver, and the liver makes nitrogenous waste, which is urea. And urea gets put into the blood so that the kidneys in a minute can take it out of the blood. So the amount of urea in the blood increases as the blood passes through the liver. But the liver does take things out of our blood, so it removes things like toxins, and alcohol is the key example. And the job of the liver is to process toxins and make them safe so that we're not poisoning ourselves. So it decreases the amount of alcohol going in the blood as it goes through the liver. Large intestine, what does the large intestine do? It takes, oh no, that's a liver thing. Oh yes, green, liver. The green post-it note means that both things happen depending on what the liver needs to do. So sometimes the liver stores glucose and sometimes the liver releases glucose, depending on what it's being told to do. The storage molecule found in the liver is glycogen. Is glycogen. So when the liver is storing glucose as glycogen, it will take glucose out of the blood, and when it is releasing glycogen, because maybe we haven't had anything to eat for a day, we will release our stored carbohydrates as sugar into the blood. So glucose can do both things depending on what the needs are. Right, the large intestine. The large intestine's job is to reabsorb water from the feces that's going through it so that we do not get dehydrated. So the water levels in the blood go up as they go past the large intestine. Over on the right here, we've got the bone marrow. Bone marrow's job is to make blood cells. So as the blood passes through the bone marrow, the number of blood cells in it goes up. And that's white blood cells as well as red blood cells. Glands, this example of a gland is pancreas. Glands release hormones, in this example, insulin. So as blood passes through a gland, the number of hormones in the blood goes up. The kidneys, we're going to meet our friend urea again. The kidneys remove things from our blood. They are cleaners of our blood. So as the blood goes through the kidneys, anything that we have too much of, we get rid of. So all the urea, the salt, any extra water leaves our blood, goes into the kidneys. So all of these things decrease in quantities in the blood as it goes through the kidneys. And the last one on this list is the small intestines. The small intestine is where absorption of digested products happens. So if we are absorbing that from our digestive system, means our blood will increase in anything that we have been eating that we've managed to digest, and that will include all the classic things like increased in sugar, increase in amino acids, and also increasing in water because we absorb water through our intestine. So those are the changes that can happen. You can think about other things too, like what might happen is as the blood goes past your brain, for example, or different glands. I didn't put the heart in there because the heart, it depends whether you're talking about the heart and the blood going through the muscle of the heart, which would just be like any other muscle, except that it can't produce lactic acid, or whether it's blood actually travelling through the heart chambers. And when it's travelling through the heart chambers, the only thing that really changes is the pressurization, which is not a chemical component. Yeah, so that's changes of composition of the blood.